Sims, Terry Kidwell. Pretty good snow. So this is the Good Ride review of the Sims Terry Kidwell Pro model that's new for this year, and it's a really fun board just to start off with. I mainly rode it with Union Atlas and Adidas Tactical ADV, but I also rode it with Adidas Xterra and the 19 Tactical ADV, I believe. I think I also rode it with the Adidas Response, but I can't remember. I'll look at all the videos and write it down below. And I compared it against a lot of different boards. But the one that I personally owned, a favorite of mine, is the Yes Pick Your Line. They have a similar taper. They have a similar camber profile. This has a little more camber, and they have just kind of a similar all-around ride. And so I'm going to put this away now, lay it up against my car here, and we're just going to kind of talk about, like, break down kind of some of the features here, and I'll compare it with some of the other boards too as I go through it all. Like, for example, I started with like the Tom Sims, comparing it with that, but they were very different boards. But in terms of weight, it's got that Never Summer weight to it. It's not super heavy, but it feels sturdy, it feels well made, and it feels reliable. And it's got a dampness to it. In comparison to the Pick Your Line, the Pick Your Line felt a touch lighter, like it was more on the light side of medium. This feels more medium side of medium to maybe bordering on medium heavy. But when I got both boards up, just taking one run on this board, one run on the Pick Your Line, I felt like the Pick Your Line was a little more light, where this was a little more bouncy. Still damp and good, but this had more dampness. This has that Never Summer dampness, that like nice balance between, and this is made in Never Summer, by the way, nice balance between, pop and feel underfoot while still being really damp. So that's pretty cool. In terms of pop, it really springed out of the turns well, and it really popped off the tail really well, because it's just got that, a long camber going to a little bit of early rise. And check the On the Table review so you can get the idea of all that and set back on board and such. Butterability was almost a no-go. I could barely butter the nose. But I didn't really try too much. This board just wanted to turn, and that's mainly what I did. And the on-snow personality, the on-snow feel, it's definitely a mostly camber board. It's got that directional camber thing. It's not a board that's mellow and easy to ride. It's more for your advanced to expert rider. It's a little more forgiving than camber, but still lives on that more technical, aggressive side. And, kind of that free ride world. And it's just, it just wants to make all kinds of turns. It likes a little bit of extra weight off the back foot. And it really appeals to that directional rider who doesn't ride switch much, likes some good speed to it, and likes maneuverability. For a 160, it felt a little smaller. It probably felt more like a 57 to me. Even my Yes Pick Your Line, that didn't have as much camber and as much pop out of the turn, felt like it was a little bigger. So there you have it. With edge hold, it's pretty good. I've mainly been riding this. I've only been riding this in spring conditions, as you can see. It's almost done. The season is near its close, and I just barely got these in time to review them. It's been one of the most busy years ever. Just every week a new shipment of boards arrives. And we got this right in the nick of time to kind of finish out the season on a high note. And it's got good edge hold in that hard early morning spring snow, but nothing amazing. I felt stronger grip with my Yes Pick Your Line. I even felt stronger grip with like some of the Kura shapes. Not really a apples to apples comparison, but like I was riding my Puzzle and the Pencil along with this, just seeing how it fared against super surfy shapes. And it definitely feels less surfy, but it's got a little of that tapery feel still to it, but it definitely allows a little more drive off the front foot. But the edge hold, you got to keep weighted a little bit back, and the edge hold does pretty well, but in hard snow it starts to let go about medium hard to snow mint. But it's good enough for most of the conditions you want to ride. If you want some more grip, you might want to look to something with more of a disrupted side cut. This has kind of more of a traditional-ish side cut and traditional shape, but turn initiation is super fun. Wherever I wanted this board it would go. I'd say it's like medium fast to fast, and especially pairing it up with Atlas and Adidas tactical ADVs, like a more responsive kind of on the middle upper response level. I found that this board responded pretty well. I think it likes a little bit more responsive binding, but it did really well edge to edge. And I could feel like if we had some tree runs to do, I'd be fine making tight turns on the tree, especially the more set back you get. It'll turn a little quicker. So that's pretty good. Overall though, the turning experience is just brilliant. I love the way it springs out of a turn. I love that pop and drive from edge to edge, and I just found myself having fun riding around the mountain and really just enjoying turning. It was such a fun thing to do with this board, and that's what it's made for. It's just made for getting out there, making good turns, having a fun time, and laying out some carves, and it carved really well. You could get into these short radius turns and they're nice and springy and fun. Then you can widen it out a little bit, kind of have some fun, and then get comfortable and really lay it out, And I felt like this did a great job. There's lots of camber here. There's lots of spring, and once the conditions got good enough, it was really fun to lay it out. So, in terms of speed, it's pretty damp, even though it's like, it's got a good base glide, it's got good dampness. It just feels a little smaller than its size, so it can bomb for sure, but it's not like the ultimate in bombing. I think I like the old Blade that it replaced a little better for bombing. That board felt more its size, or even maybe a little bigger for its size. But I like this. This feels more flexible edge to edge, a little more dynamic, a little more fun, a little more like this, where the old Blade just felt like it wanted to straight line more and bomb. The Blade felt a touch faster, but it seems to have like a similar flex and personality to the Blade in flex personality, but not in shape and on snow personality. And then, uneven terrain, this thing can just hammer through uneven resort snow. On a powder day, even though it feels a little small for its size, this dampness is great for hammering through uneven, like tracked snow on a powder day to get to that good stuff. Or if you just make a wrong turn, or you made a right turn into bumps, this I would have no problem weaving in and out of bumps with this, and I thought this was a pretty quick turner. Just maybe a touch slower than my Pick Your Line. And when I'm, in real comparison to the Pick Your Line, I felt like the Pick Your Line was a little more light, a little more dynamic underfoot. It had a little more playful feel. It had a little more grip. It felt a little more forgiving, where this had more of that like aggressive camber drive. And I don't think one's necessarily better than the other, although maybe, you know, 5 out of 6 might prefer the pick your line, or, you know, or vice versa. But I just feel like the pick your line had a more forgiving, for me, everyday ride, but this has a more technical, aggressive, turny, more rewarding, carvy, good condition ride. And I think both of them would do pretty well in powder. You know, I can't say for sure because I haven't tried it, but you know, there's this little bit of early rise that kind of starts about right here. So it gives you about that much, you know, before the nose starts. And it's not a real big nose, but you know, it's definitely a great groomer board. And I think when set all the way back, it would do pretty well in powder. The pick your line's like amazing for how little setback on board there is with that big nose. You know, definitely reduced volume, tapered tail, and all that. You know, and the pick your line has a little more edge hold for that more all conditions ride. But I think this is just a really fun, carvy, turny board for those who really like a camber feel, but want a little more float in powder than camber can offer. Because camber, even nowadays, like riding most like free ride boards, if they were like this in full camber, it wouldn't be that much fun in the powder. So, you know, at least you've got a little modern compromise that still gives you like so much good spring out of the turn, and floats as well. And you know, in comparing it to the Tom Sims, I was like, man, you know, the Tom Sims feels so different. It's different camber profile, kind of like a long micro camber to an early micro early rise on the tip and tail. It felt so much more forgiving, so much more playful, so much more of a double ender that you could butter and press and you know, and turn with, ride switch. It kind of felt like way more something that you could center up and kind of take a decent mountain freestyle approach to it. Not as good as the Dealer's Choice or the Juice, but up there. Nice compromise. And you know, for riding switch, this was okay, but not great. You know, just a tapered directional board like this just doesn't really do it for me, switch, but it's very doable if you want to get used to it. But you definitely feel the difference, the taper, the different size of the nose and tail and all that. You know, in terms of bass, check out the On the Table review, but it's got good glide to it, and they cut the Sims in really well. You know, for getting air, this really pops off the tail well, and it's great for an ollie, for a method, you know, that kind of thing. I don't really, you know, and you can spin and you can kind of land switch with it, but in powder, it's definitely like going from this nice floaty directional board to throwing that tail around, and all of a sudden, like, there's that cambered short tail just sticking down into the snow, and that won't be that much fun. Jibs, no fucking way. I'm too old and broken to take a board like this in there. Just didn't even think about it. You know, I'd love to ride pipe with this. I think this would be a fun pipe board, as long as it wasn't super icy for me. And you know, hitting some kickers or two, sure, why not? But you know, it's just more of kind of a directional air type of board. But as you know, as long as you're not, like, you know, trying to, you know, land at switch and powder, you could stomp the switch off some kickers if you wanted to. But you know, where it really shines is just riding the mountain, having fun. That mostly directional to almost all directional rider who doesn't want to get super surfy, but wants a little bit of that surfy feel, a little bit more of that off the tail carvy ride. This is where it's at, and I had a really fun time in the Kidwell. And even though I'm done with this review, I'm still gonna take it out and try to ride it some more in different conditions, you know, this last week of the year, and see if I can get some more some more of its personality. So there you have it. That's the Simms Kidwell. It's just a super fun, super aggressive, fun board for those who are very technical riders.